The table illustrates the changes and differences in the percentage of unemployment in 9 countries over a decade from 1994 to 2004. Overall, there were downward trends in 5 countries, contrary to the upward trends in the rest 4 countries, with the most remarkable change that could be found in Ireland. Besides, it is noteworthy that the gap between countries was widened over the given decade. In 1994, the percentage of joblessness in Ireland was at 14.8%, which was the highest. Then, it experienced the most considerable fall to 4.4%, which was the lowest in 2004. Similarly, the research documented decreases in Italy, Canada, the UK, and the USA, 11.8% to 8.4%, 10.6% to 7.7%, 9.5% to 4.7%, 7.2% to 5.4% respectively. Despite these declines, numbers in Italy and Canada constantly accounted for the 3rd highest and the 4th highest correspondingly. In stark contrast, regarding Poland, it demonstrates the opposite trend, with figure increasing significantly from 12.4% to 19%, exceeding Ireland to become the country with highest percentage of unemployment. Likewise, the investigation witnessed slight growths in Germany and Australia, 7% to 9.4% for the former and from 5% to 5.4% for the latter, although a comparable rise from 2.7% to 4.7% could be seen in Japan. These figures were successively among the lowest percentages in both years. Given line graph and column chart illustrate the quarterly figures of the average price in pounds of tickets sold at a theater and the percentage of tickets sold in 2010 and 2011. It is clear from the graphs that despite the sharp hike in ticket price, there was a general upward trend in the percentage of tickets sold. The line graph depicts that the average ticket prices stood at £5.20 in the first quarter of 2010, then sharply and constantly increasing, reaching the peak at £10.50 in the first quarter of 2011. Following this was a slight decrease to £9.20 in second quarter. However, the research documented a growth back to 10.5 in the next quarter, and ticket price tended to remain stable in the last quarter of the research. Meanwhile, the column graph shows that the percentage of tickets sold was at 20% in Q1 2010, which was the lowest number across the graph. In the following quarters, it experienced a general growth, with number going up relatively successively and considerably, culminating at 50% in the last quarter 2011, except for a small fall from 35% in Q4 2010 to 30% in Q1 2011 that bucked the trend. Therefore, the most remarkable change could be found in 2021 in comparison with corresponding change in 2010. The pie charts illustrate the changes and differences in the percentages of students' expenditure spent on entertainment, renting, food over the period 1985 to 2015. Overall, the given period witnessed a downward trend across the board, except for renting, the only category that bucked the trend. Furthermore, the gap between factors was widened considerably by the end of the research. In particular, expenditure spent on renting experienced an upward trend. It stood at the lowest number at 20% in 1985, then increasing consecutively to the peak at 50% in 1025, exceeding other factors to become the highest number. Besides, the most remarkable change could be found in this category in comparison with the changes in other factors. In stark contrast, concerning spending on clothes, the graph demonstrates an opposing trend, with number decreasing constantly from 25% in 1985 to 11% in 2015, relatively continuously constituting the smallest shares since 1995. Similarly, there was a successive fall from 28% in 1995 to 18% in 2015 in spending on entertainment, following a slight rise of 3% from 25% in the beginning. Despite this change, it consistently accounted for the third highest numbers over the research. Meanwhile, the figure for spending on food tended to decline gradually from 30% to 25% in 2005 and to 21% in 2015, after a stability at 30% in the first 10 years. The given tables illustrate the differences in working time of employees who worked full-time and part-time jobs in three nations, compared to European average number in 2002. Overall, men in all countries, except Netherlands, had more working hours than women did. Additionally, the figures for full-time workers in Greece were constantly the highest in both genders, and above the European average. In contrast, regarding the Netherlands and the UK, the graph shows an opposite trend with numbers below the average. Meanwhile, the Netherlands shows a domination against other nations in terms of working hours for part-time employees. Working hours of full-time male workers in Greece were 45 hours, compared to 42 hours of female counterparts. These figures were higher than that of European average by 3 hours and 2 hours respectively. By contrast, the corresponding numbers in the UK were 40 hours and 37 hours, lower than European average numbers. While male and female workers in the Netherlands had equal numbers of 32 working hours, constituting the lowest numbers. The figures for part-time employees in Netherlands ranked the top, with figure of 32 hours for men and 34 hours for women, higher than European average by 8 hours and 9 hours respectively. Meanwhile, the graph shows no gap between two genders in Greece and the UK, with even numbers at 20 hours for the former and 22 hours for the latter. These were lower than the data for European average. The given maps demonstrate the changes in Bell Hill Farm that took place over a period of 3 decades, from 1976 to 2006. Overall, the Bell Hill Farm was completely transformed into the Environment Center by 2006. The only unit that was left untouched is farmhouse located in the south with no change done to it. The first noticeable change that could be seen is the replacement of storage for farm machinery with a car parking in the northwest area, whereas barn farm in the north was demolished, giving room to the establishment of a multimedia room. In 2006, both cow sheds and chicken place in the eastern area of farm were removed, taken over by the construction of a student housing unit that was newly introduced. Similarly, the maps show a destruction of the farmyard in the center of Bill Farm. It was knocked down to give way the construction of a new recreational center in 2006. However, regarding the farmhouse in the south and Y-shaped road in the southwest, they were remained unchanged over 3 decades. The line graph illustrates the changes in data about the number of users of 5 different services of communication over the period 1998 to 2008. Overall, cellular phone service and Internet service experienced upward trends, with the most considerable growth for the former. Similarly, fixed broadband and mobile broadband underwent gradual, slight growths. However, concerning landline service, a reversed trend could be seen. In particular, regarding the number of cellular phone service users, it stood at about 7% in 1998. Then increasing steadily and dramatically to the peak at 60% in 2008, exceeding other means to dominate the market. Due to this enormous rise, since 2002, cellular phone service consecutively accounted for the highest numbers. Likewise, the graph shows a constant rise in Internet service, starting from approximately 5%, growing relatively gradually, approaching about 21% in 2008. In the first 4 years of the research, no data for fixed broadband and mobile broadband was recorded. But since 2002, the numbers tended to go up slowly, reaching roughly 8% and 7% respectively. In stark contrast, the investigation witnessed a narrow fluctuation, ranging 15% to 18% in landline service from 1998 to 2004, followed by a rapid fall to 10% by the end of the research. It is noteworthy that most communication services began to grow remarkably since 2002, and the gap between them was visibly widened due to the growths at different speeds.